Most people think avoidant people are afraid of love. That is not the truth. They are afraid of helplessness. They are afraid of dependence without safety. They are afraid of handing their heart to someone who does not know what to do with it. And if you do not understand that, you will misread the entire pattern. You will think they are cold when they are flooded. You will think they do not feel when they feel too much. You will think they do not care when caring feels dangerous to them. Listen. There are people in this world who can laugh with you, sleep beside you, build a life next to you, even say the right words at the right moments, and still never let you all the way in. Not because they are evil, not because they are empty, because somewhere deep in the nervous system they made a decision a long time ago. Maybe they were 5, maybe they were 10. Maybe nobody ever said it out loud, but the body learned it anyway. Do not need too much. Do not trust too fast. Do not lean. Do not ask. Do not be the one who reaches. Stay in control. Stay composed. Stay untouched. And that decision becomes a personality. Then the personality becomes an identity. Then the identity becomes a prison with very nice furniture. That is how it happens. A human being does not wake up one day and decide, I want intimacy to feel complicated. Nobody does that consciously. The psyche adapts. The heart protects itself. The child discovers that vulnerability without attunement is pain, and the mind says, fine, then we will become self-sufficient. We will become capable. We will become the one who needs less. We will become the one who can walk away first. And for a while that pattern works. That is the hard part. It works. It gets you through childhood. It gets you through chaos. It gets you through homes where love was inconsistent, homes where emotion was punished, homes where your tenderness was met with confusion, neglect, criticism, intrusion, or simply absence. It helps you survive environments where the adults were physically present but emotionally far away. It helps you survive if the people who were supposed to soothe you became the people you had to manage. So what does the child do? The child becomes impressive, quietly impressive, strong early, self-contained, hyper-observant, independent before it is age-appropriate, maybe high-functioning, maybe funny, maybe competent, maybe easy to praise because they ask for so little. But inside, the soul makes a bargain. I will not burden anyone with my needs if my needs have nowhere safe to go. That is not maturity. That is adaptation. And adaptation, if you do not examine it, starts running your life. You can call it avoidant attachment. You can call it emotional distancing. You can call it fear of engulfment. Jung might have called part of it a defensive structure, a relationship between the conscious self and the shadow that has not yet been made whole. Different language. Same fire. The person is split. One part longs to merge. Another part says, absolutely not. One part wants home. Another part equates home with danger. One part wants to be known. Another part says if you are known, you can be hurt. So you get that push and pull. Come here, go away. See me, do not touch me. Love me, do not need me. Stay, but not too close. And if you have ever loved someone like that, or if you are that someone, you know how exhausting it can feel. Because the contradiction is real. It is not manipulation in the simple sense people talk about online. It is a nervous system trying to protect an old wound with strategies that once were intelligent and now have become too expensive. Here is the truth. Avoidant people do not bond for life with many people. Usually they cannot. Not deeply. Not all the way. Not because they lack the capacity. Because their system is selective at a level most people never understand. The gate is heavy. The lock is old. The soul is asking a question it cannot ask in words. Am I safe enough to stop performing self-protection? That is the real question. Not, do I like you? Not, are you attractive? Not, are you exciting? Not even, do we have chemistry? The deeper question is, when I am with you, does my body have to armor itself? Do I have to translate myself? Do I have to defend my boundaries every 5 minutes? Do I have to prove my worth? Do I have to become smaller to stay connected, or harder to stay safe? Or can I breathe here? That is rare. And because it is rare, when an avoidant person meets the rare human being whose presence does not trigger the old emergency, something unusual can happen. They bond with a depth that surprises even them. Not quickly, usually. Not dramatically in the beginning. It may even look ordinary from the outside. But inwardly there is a quiet revolution. The system, for once, is not spending all its energy defending. And the energy that was trapped in defense becomes available for devotion. That is why sometimes the most emotionally distant people become the most loyal once the bond is real. But here is where everybody gets confused. They think the rare person is rare because they are perfect. No, the rare person is not perfect. The rare person is regulated. The rare person is congruent. The rare person does not force closeness and does not punish distance. The rare person can stay present without chasing, can stay warm without smothering, can tell the truth without making truth feel like a weapon. The rare person does not make intimacy feel like captivity. Let me say that again. The rare person does not make intimacy feel like captivity. That changes everything. Because for the avoidant psyche, closeness has often been fused with loss of self, love fused with obligation, need fused with shame, family fused with unpredictability. So when they encounter somebody who can love without consuming, who can stay without controlling, who can care without invading, it does not just feel attractive. It feels unfamiliar in the most healing way. It feels like a door in a house they have lived in all their lives but never opened. Now let me be honest with you. Some of you listening to this have spent years calling yourself independent when the deeper truth is that you are defended. And there is a difference. Independence is power. Defensiveness is fear dressed well. Independence says I can stand alone and still choose connection. Defensiveness says I must stand alone because connection does not feel safe. One is freedom. The other is armor. It is not confidence, it is protection, it is not peace, it is distance, it is not standards, it is fear. And if you do not tell the truth about that, the pattern continues. A lot of people live entire lives this way. Functional, productive, admirable even. They build careers, they handle crises, they become the reliable one, they become the one everybody leans on. But when it comes to receiving, really receiving, they shrink. Compliments bounce off, help feels loaded, dependency feels humiliating, deep love activates suspicion. And then they tell themselves a story. I just have high standards. I just need a lot of space. I just have not met the right person. Sometimes that is true. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes the issue is not that no one good has appeared. The issue is that goodness does not register when your system is calibrated for danger. Peace can feel boring to a body trained on unpredictability. Calm can feel suspicious. Kindness can feel foreign. A steady person may not trigger fireworks. They trigger something more unsettling. Grief. Because if a safe love appears, then the old story starts to crack. And when the story cracks, the pain underneath it comes up. The child who adapted so beautifully has to confront a possibility that is both healing and devastating. Maybe I was always worthy of the love I could not receive. Maybe what happened was not proof that I was too much or not enough. Maybe I became hard because softness had nowhere safe to land. That realization can bring tears that have been delayed for 20 years. And I want you to see this. The avoidant pattern is not the enemy. The unconscious pattern is the enemy. The strategy is not shameful. The refusal to examine it is what costs you, because the very thing that saved you at one stage can starve you at the next. It is like learning to live on a lifeboat and then trying to build a family on it. The lifeboat was a miracle in the storm. It is not a home. That is the shift. You honor the adaptation. Then you outgrow it. You thank the armor. Then you put it down. You stop hating the younger self who built it. You stop worshiping it too. Here is the deepest part. A lot of avoidant people secretly believe they can only be loved if they remain useful, composed, self-contained, and slightly unavailable. They feel safest when they are admired from a distance. Because admiration does not ask as much as intimacy. Admiration says you are amazing. Intimacy says, come here as you are. Admiration keeps you elevated. Intimacy brings you to earth. And earth is where the wound lives. So what happens? You become excellent in public and elusive in private. You become magnetic at first and difficult to reach later. You can talk ideas, dreams, books, philosophy, strategy, even pain in abstract form. But the moment somebody says, what are you feeling right now with me? The system gets hot. Suddenly there is a joke, a subject change, a retreat, a need for space, an unexplained coolness, maybe even a disappearing act. That is not because the person feels nothing. Usually it is the opposite. They feel too much, too fast, and their structure has not learned how to metabolize closeness without losing control. So distance becomes regulation. You want to know why one rare person can change all of that? Because sometimes healing is not a concept. It is a relational experience, not theory, not insight, experience. The nervous system has to live through a different outcome enough times that it begins to believe a new world is possible. That is why one safe, grounded, honest relationship can accomplish what years of self-analysis never fully touched. Not because the other person saves you. Nobody saves you. But because in the right bond, the exiled parts of you finally get a new reference point. You learn that conflict does not always mean abandonment. You learn that closeness does not always erase you. You learn that being seen does not always end in shame. You learn that silence is not always punishment. You learn that asking is not always dangerous. That is enormous. And yet, do not romanticize it. The rare person is not magic if you stay unconscious. You can meet the safest soul in the world and still sabotage the bond if you worship your defenses more than your destiny. Healing is relational, yes. It is also a decision, a series of decisions, a discipline of truth, a willingness to feel awkward while the old pattern loses power. There are 3 decisions that shape what happens next, and most people make them unconsciously every day. The first decision is what you focus on. The second decision is what meaning you give to what you focus on. The third decision is what you do because of that meaning. That is the architecture. That is the whole machine. If you focus on the text they did not send, the look on their face, the shift in their tone, and you make it mean rejection, danger, control, or betrayal, then your action will be withdrawal, coldness, defensiveness, or attack. But if you catch yourself in that moment and widen the lens, if you remember there are 1,000 possible meanings and not all of them are a threat, your action changes. Then the pattern changes. Then the future changes. Focus is the master key. Focus is the lens. Focus determines everything. Most suffering is not just what happened. It is what your mind keeps announcing that it means. That is not blame. That is power. Because if meaning is being made, it can be remade. I learned that in my own life in a different form. I knew what it was like to be fueled by anger when I was young. Anger is fire. It gives you motion. It gives you edge. It gives you the illusion of certainty. And sometimes, for a while, it helps you rise. But anger is dirty fuel. It burns hot, and it burns out. Eventually you discover that being driven by what hurt you is not the same as being pulled by what calls you. One shrinks the soul, the other builds it. The same is true with intimacy. Fear can organize your behavior. It cannot build a beautiful life. Push is real. Pull is better. If your whole relational life is built on avoiding pain, then even your love becomes defensive. Even your standards become fortresses. Even your boundaries become walls so high nobody can climb them, including the people who would have treated your heart with care. That is why the work is not merely to avoid the wrong people. It is to become able to recognize and receive the right ones. And that takes courage, not a dramatic kind of courage, a quiet one. The kind where you stay in the room long enough to tell the truth. The kind where you admit, I want to leave right now, not because you are dangerous, but because closeness is waking up something old in me. The kind where you say, I need a little space, but I am not abandoning this. The kind where you stop turning temporary overwhelm into permanent conclusions. That kind of courage changes lives. Here is a picture for you. Imagine an army landing on an island. The enemy is ahead, the boats are behind, and the leader burns the boats. Why? Because if retreat remains the secret option, half the heart never commits. Half the heart is already gone. The avoidant pattern lives with emotional boats on the shore at all times. Exit routes. Mental distance, romantic ambiguity, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, plausible deniability. That way, if pain comes, the self can say, I was never fully here anyway. But love does not grow well in divided ground. I am not telling you to become reckless. I am telling you to notice where you keep symbolic boats. The way you stay slightly ironic about your own feelings. The way you delay naming what matters. The way you make closeness provisional, always subject to disappearance. The way you keep one internal suitcase packed so you never have to feel trapped. That is not freedom. That is anticipation of pain, and anticipation of pain can become a lifestyle. Now listen to me carefully. If you suffered early, you may still be carrying the old interpretation like a hidden scripture. Maybe nobody came when you hurt, so you decided your pain was yours alone. Maybe you were judged for your feelings, so you learned to edit yourself before speaking. Maybe love was inconsistent, so you became the one who would never need too much. Maybe you were unseen so often that invisibility started to feel like dignity. But when the adult you meets the younger you with honesty, something extraordinary can happen. What looked like damage can reveal itself as training. The years alone taught you self-sufficiency. The lack of support taught you how to build from the ground up. The unpredictability taught you perception. The loneliness taught you depth. The distance taught you imagination. None of that means the wound was good. It means your soul did not waste it. It means survival left behind capacities. It means the child was not weak. The child became skilled. And now the adult can take those skills and use them for life, rather than using them only for defense. That is the bridge. You stop saying, something is wrong with me. You start saying, something happened to me and I adapted brilliantly, and now I am allowed to adapt again. That is dignity. That is healing. That is where shame starts losing oxygen. Because shame says the pattern is your identity. Truth says the pattern is your history. History matters. It is not final. Carl Jung understood something people miss when they turn him into quotes on the internet. He understood that what remains unconscious directs your life, and then you call it fate. If you keep choosing distance without understanding the fear beneath it, you will call your loneliness sophistication. If you keep leaving safe people because they do not activate your old chaos, you will call your inconsistency intuition. If you keep mistaking hyper-independence for wholeness, you will call your isolation strength. That is shadow at work, not demons. Not shadow. The parts of you do not want to own start steering from the basement. And then you wonder why every relationship ends at the same cliff. Here is the strongest force in your life. Not your intention, your pattern. Intention matters. Pattern runs faster. Which means, if you want a new life, you need more than insight. You need interruption. You need practice. You need a new experience repeated until the nervous system stops expecting the old movie. It is like learning any skill. First, you do not know what you do not know. Then you become painfully aware. That is conscious incompetence. You see yourself pulling away. You hear the tone in your voice. You feel the freeze. You recognize the old urge to disappear. It is uncomfortable because now you cannot hide from yourself. Good. Stay there. Then with repetition, you become consciously competent. You pause, you breathe, you speak instead of vanishing. You ask instead of assuming. You remain instead of running. And one day, if you keep practicing, warmth becomes less threatening. Honesty becomes more natural. Intimacy becomes less like a battlefield and more like a home. That is unconscious competence. Not perfection, capacity. And yes, it takes time. Anything worthwhile does. Think of a master shooter in basketball. People see a few seconds on the court and call it talent. They do not see the thousands and thousands of repetitions when nobody is clapping. Repetition creates confidence. Confidence without repetition is fantasy. The same in love. You do not become secure because you wish to be secure. You become secure by practicing truth, presence, and repair enough times that your body trusts your own capacity. Wishing for confidence without competence is just delusion. Again, not desire. Practice, not hope. Repetition, not performance, presence. And I know some of you are tired just hearing that, because a part of you wants love to arrive and remove the work. I understand. We all want grace. We all want relief. But the gift is not that the right person removes your work. The gift is that with the right person, the work becomes meaningful enough to do. That is the difference. Meaning changes effort. Meaning turns discipline into devotion. Meaning makes honesty bearable. Meaning makes discomfort worthwhile. If you have no why, every relational challenge feels like proof you should leave. If you have a deep why, challenge becomes part of the path. The hero is not the one who feels no fear. The hero is the one who stops worshiping fear as wisdom. You, my friend, may have spent years believing that your distance keeps you safe. Maybe it did. But safe from what? From betrayal, perhaps. From engulfment, maybe. From disappointment, yes. But also safe from being known. Safe from being changed. Safe from the very intimacy that could make your life richer, softer, deeper, more human. And what kind of safety is that? A greenhouse can protect a plant from weather. It can also keep it from becoming a forest. There is an original image I want to give you. Imagine carrying a priceless instrument in a locked case your whole life because you are afraid someone will scratch it. The case is excellent, durable, elegant, protective. Years go by and the instrument remains untouched, flawless, and unheard. Then one day somebody arrives who does not try to pry the case open, does not demand a performance, does not tell you the instrument is useless if it stays hidden. They simply sit nearby with enough steadiness that your own hand reaches for the latch. That is what the rare person is often like. Not a thief, not a rescuer. A presence in which your own deeper self feels safe enough to emerge. That matters, because healing that is forced is not healing. It is reenactment. The rare person does not conquer the avoidant heart. They invite it. An invitation is holy in a world where so many people try to extract rather than understand. But hear me clearly. Do not turn this into a fantasy about one perfect soul completing you. That is another trap. The rare person matters. Your participation matters more. You still have to choose. You still have to notice your stories. You still have to interrupt distortions. You still have to learn to say what is real before resentment poisons the bond. You still have to stop testing people with silence and then calling their confusion proof they do not care. That game has to end. So, what do I mean by all this in practical terms? I mean, in the next 24 hours, I want you to do one thing, and I want it to be non-negotiable. I want you to take 90 seconds alone with a pen and write 2 sentences. Just 2. The first sentence is this: when closeness starts to feel real, the story I tell myself is, then finish it honestly, not elegantly. Maybe it is, I will lose myself. Maybe it is, they will eventually leave. Maybe it is, I will be asked for more than I can give. Maybe it is, if they see the real me, they will not stay. Fine, write it. Then the second sentence: the truth I am willing to practice instead is, and finish that one too. Maybe it is, I can stay connected without abandoning myself. Maybe it is, a pause is not a rejection. Maybe it is, I can ask for reassurance without shame. Maybe it is, safe love may feel unfamiliar before it feels natural. Read those 2 sentences out loud. That is your drill. 90 seconds. Why does it matter? Because the moment the unconscious story becomes language, it loses some of its power to masquerade as reality. You stop swimming in it and start looking at it. You create a sliver of separation between you and the pattern. And in that sliver lies choice. Choice is where your future begins. If you want to go further, share the first sentence with someone safe. Not everyone. Someone earned. Someone who can hold it without using it against you. That act alone can begin rewiring years of isolation. Not because the sentence solves everything, because disclosure without catastrophe teaches the body something new. And if you are the person loving someone avoidant, let me say this with care. You cannot love somebody out of a pattern they are committed to protecting. You cannot regulate for them forever. You cannot prove your goodness endlessly while they remain devoted to misreading peace as danger. Compassion, yes. Self-betrayal, no. Patience, yes. Erasing your needs, no. The rare person is not the one who tolerates everything. The rare person is the one who remains real. Warm and real. Boundaried and real. Available and real. Real heals more than perfect ever could. Because perfection is a performance. Reality is where trust grows. And trust, real trust, is not built by intensity. It is built by congruence. Your words match your actions. Your care survives discomfort. Your boundaries are clear. Your affection is not manipulative. Your absence is explained. Your presence is felt. Over time, that consistency tells the frightened heart, maybe I do not need all my weapons here. That is when the bond deepens. Quietly, seriously, lastingly. I believe this. Some of the most beautiful love stories on earth are not between 2 naturally secure people who glided into each other. Some are between a deeply defended soul who finally told the truth and a deeply grounded soul who knew how to receive that truth without turning it into leverage. That kind of bond is not flashy. It is not always loud. But it has weight. It has reverence. It has gratitude in it because both people know what it costs to get there. And if an avoidant person truly lets you in, really lets you in, it can carry an almost sacred quality. Not because they are better than others. Because what opens slowly often opens deeply. What has been guarded for years, once offered freely, is given with seriousness. They do not bond with many. But when they do, if they have done the work, they can bond with their whole being. That is why this matters so much, not to make anyone special, to make the unconscious conscious, to bring dignity back to struggle, to stop pathologizing what was once survival, and to stop romanticizing defenses that are quietly starving the soul. The goal is not to become a different person. The goal is to become a more integrated one. To let your strength stay while your tenderness returns. To let your boundaries stay while your openness grows. To let your discernment stay while your suspicion relaxes. To become the kind of human who can be deeply connected without vanishing from yourself. That is real power, not domination. Integration, not detachment. Choice, not never needing. Freedom in needing without fear. And if you are sitting there thinking, maybe it is too late for me, I do not buy it. I do not think so. Human beings can change in remarkable ways when they finally have enough honesty and strong enough reasons. People transform when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of opening. People transform when they discover that what they called personality was often just repetition. People transform when they meet a future that matters more than their old protection. You can be one of those people. You can. Not by pretending the wound did not happen, not by shaming yourself for having defenses, not by finding a more sophisticated way to hide, by telling the truth, by practicing new meaning, by choosing presence one moment at a time, by letting the old adaptation become a foundation rather than a fate. That is the work, and it is worthwhile. Because the highest quality of life is not found in never needing anyone. It is found in being able to love without losing yourself, and be loved without hiding yourself. That is a different level of living. That is life on more honest terms. You do not experience life. You experience the life you focus on. So if all your focus has gone to danger, to exits, to what might go wrong, to the signals that tell you to pull away, then of course love has felt exhausting. Shift the focus. Not into fantasy. Into truth. Into who is in front of you. Into what is actually happening. Into whether your story belongs to this moment or to another time entirely. Because one story keeps you defended. Another story helps you grow, and growth for all of us asks the same thing in the end. Will you keep serving the pattern, or will you serve the life that is trying to emerge through you? That is the real choice. That is the rare bond too. Not merely finding one rare person, but becoming rare enough yourself that when real love arrives, you can recognize it, receive it, and remain present long enough to let it change you. You owe that to your own heart. You owe it to the child who survived by becoming hard. You owe it to the adult who no longer has to. And if life has brought you to that one rare soul who does not make love feel like a cage, who does not confuse closeness with control, who does not punish your honesty, who can meet your distance with steadiness and your truth with care, then do not treat that gift casually. Meet it consciously. Meet it bravely. Meet it with the part of you that is tired of surviving and ready, finally, to belong. Because the real journey is not from alone to attached. It is from defended to alive. And when you make that journey with courage, the bond you build is not just romance. It is redemption.